Hi, welcome to the Arts in Hawaii on the Think Tech Hawaii digital series. I am Donna Blanchard, your host and very proud managing director of Kumu Kahua Theatre. Here with Think Tech Hawaii, we are raising awareness of globalism, diversity, technology, and energy. And we are coming to you live from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu. Just a couple of bits of information I want to give you before we start. If you would like to make a question or a comment during the show while we're running live, you can tweet us at hashtag ThinkTechHI. We broadcast live on the internet every weekday. Our shows are streamed on ustream.tv and Spreaker.com. And if you would like links to our live streams and anything that we have in our abundant archives, you can find all of that information at thinktechhawaii.com. My guest today is Dann Seki. He is a stage and screen actor and a storyteller. He's a member of the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. He has appeared in numerous plays on the stages of most of the theaters in Honolulu and has performed in Los Angeles as well. He's also a board member of Kumu Kahua Theatre.
Hey.
I give you my guest, Dann Seki.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much
It's
for
a
being
new
here.
experience.
Well, I'm happy to provide a new experience for you, Dan.
And it's not at 6 a.m. in the morning, so that's great.
No, my show will never be on at 6 a.m. in the morning. You can catch us on YouTube at 6 a.m. if you really want that. But I think that's an unnatural time for me.
Well, we've been on promotional things for a lot of the morning news shows, and that's kind of, you have to be there before the sun comes up.
Yeah. Not going to happen here. You don't have
Good.
to worry about that. Are you working on anything right now?
Not at the moment. We're just at the tail end of Under the Blood Red Sun. There are a few more scenes that need to be filmed, but I'm not in any of them, so technically I'm finished with that. I think you had Tim Savage on.
Tim Savage was here to talk about it, Under the Blood Red Sun by Graham, what's his last name?
Salisbury.
Graham Salisbury. So when is that scheduled to be released?
I'm not really sure. I'm guessing the earliest would probably be later this year. I'm not sure if they're trying to get into the HIF, the Hawaii International Film Festival, for this year or next year.
Okay.
Part of that is probably going to depend on how quickly they can edit it all together, because they're still shooting. So I'm guessing they probably won't be finished with all of the scenes until probably the end of February, and then they have to put it all together. So.
How did you get involved in that project?
Auditioned, like with a lot of film projects. We get a notice, we meaning the actors will get a notice about an upcoming project, and they'll have some audition dates, and you show up and read for them, and if they like what you're doing, then they'll probably bring you back for what we call a callback and do another reading, perhaps met with another actor that they're also considering, and get selected that way. Now, they've been working on, I don't know what Tim shared with you, but they've been working on Under the Blood Red Sun now for a few years, trying to get it done, and so I've auditioned for it at least a couple of times, several years ago, and then more recently. So.
How do you decide when there's you hear about an audition? How do you decide if you want to audition for that or not?
Usually more by the story and the character, I suppose. If we hear about an audition, they usually give you a little bit of a capsule summary of what the story is about, and then they have a list of the characters and the people that they're looking for, age brackets, ethnicity, if there's any special needs, and then you just look it over and say, hey, that's something I'd like to do, and in the case of Under the Blood Red Sun, I wasn't familiar with the book. Apparently it's very popular in the middle schools now, but it was written later, so when I was in middle school, the book wasn't around, so we didn't really read it, and I wasn't familiar with the story, so during one of my conversations with my kids, who both live on the mainland, my daughter said, "Oh, we read that," and she thought that the book was still on the bookshelf at home. So I went to the bookshelf, and there it was. So I picked it up and read it, and loved the story. And I said, "Oh, so if they're going to do a movie of this, I would love to be in it." And there we are.
And there you are, playing the grandfather.
Grandfather. Yeah.
What are you drawn to in characters?
Oh, that's a good question. That it's an interesting person that I'm interested in. You know, I try to look at it as, would I like to know this person? Would I, if I met this person, would I want to know more about them? And do I like them? I don't have to necessarily like them, but am I interested in knowing their story, kind of thing? And that's what draws me to most characters. If there's that interest there, then I'm interested. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, because you know we've all read scripts, whether it's movie or plays, and you know it's like, well, I'm not really drawn to that character. I'm not really feeling that character speaking to me. So, you know, those are the ones that you don't audition for. So.
I like to play characters who I don't want to like, but I can't help
That's
but
true.
want
That's true.
to
Yeah.
be drawn.
Well, you know, that's one of the joys, I think, of performing, is that you get to say things that you normally wouldn't say,
Yeah.
or do things that you normally wouldn't do. So yeah, so those are also choices to make in terms of selecting a character. Yeah.
Do you feel like you, playing the grandfather in Under the Blood Red Sun, do you feel like you have learned more about that character throughout the process?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you feel like you learned something about yourself?
It takes place during the early days after Pearl Harbor in 1941. So it's a time frame that I'm not really familiar with, and so. Not having lived through it, but so the learning point is that you learn about what the characters or the people went through during that period of time, and try to convey that same feeling or emotion in your character at that moment in time. Yeah.
And that connection, finding the emotional connection, you don't have a real connection to that.
Well, you try to develop it over time. You know, obviously you need to make that connection before the cameras start rolling, because you need to convey that character's emotional, psychological, you know, center when you're delivering the lines. So yeah, hopefully you'll find it sometime before they say action.
And if not, you hope they say action a lot.
Yeah. No, that's not quite what I was looking for. Let's try something else. Yeah.
And before this, last year you were in the David Henry Hwang piece that we did at Kumu Kahua Theatre, Sound and Beauty. And I thought you gave a really stellar performance, Dan. I'm not just blowing sunshine here. I really was pleasantly surprised. It was the first time I had seen you on stage.
Yeah, thank you.
And I saw, you know what, in that character, when I read that script, I saw someone who I didn't like him. I didn't like him. I was drawn to the character, but did not like him. And you brought a certain likability to it. Did you do that intentionally?
I don't think I did it intentionally. I thought that when I read it, there were some parts to that character that perhaps is what played out as likability. You know, that he was conflicted, that he had some things going on that you didn't necessarily hear in terms of the dialogue, in terms of what he was saying, but that hopefully in the backstory that we didn't see, that there were some things going on in him that were not necessarily bad, and that not necessarily a person that you wouldn't like. Yeah. So I didn't intentionally do that, I don't think, but I tried to, you know, understand the character, at least create a character that had that other side to him besides just what you saw in terms of the words that he was saying?
I think what I saw in your performance, likability is not a good enough word for what I'm trying to convey here. What I saw in the performance was a desire to connect.
Huh.
That is something that I didn't read in the script necessarily.
Yes.
I saw him very insular in the script. So it added a completely new dimension to the piece.
Well, that's a good point. You know, I hadn't really thought about it that deeply, but I think that the character, if we think about it, in hindsight, you know, is a fairly well-known writer, and but I think in his real life, in his private life, that he still had some things that he had unfulfilled, and so that maybe that came through in terms of the reaching out, looking for some kind of connection with other people that maybe wasn't really in his life at that moment. Yeah.
That's interesting. That, you know, I know actors who I'm the sort of actor who loves to pore over a script and think about it deeply and intimately, why every, you know, a little nuance is there, and I like to make decisions. There's certainly room for organic discovery in my process. But I'm always amazed, because that works for me. I'm amazed when I talk with people and they say, "Oh, I didn't really make that decision. That came about.
It just happened, I guess." Yeah. You know, there was I can't remember now who the writer was, but there was a fairly well-known, popular writer who was being interviewed like this, I suppose, and the interviewer asked her a fairly deep question in terms of the character, in terms of they were talking about a book that she had written and saying that this character did this or said that, and so the interviewer was saying, so are you saying that? And he poured this really psychological, emotional, really deep analysis of the situation in the book, and the author just looked at him and said, well, I suppose you could interpret it that way, but I was just trying to write an interesting story. You know? So sometimes there is that surface level, and that's all it is, but you know, as the actor or as the director or the audience, I suppose, we're trying to read more into what was actually going on than what was actually there, you know. And so sometimes that's good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's then going to walk away from the show having seen perhaps a little bit different show, you know, because they put a little bit of their twist, their interpretation.
Yeah.
So.
We engage as the audience, as the reader, as the viewer, whatever, for any kind of art.
And sometimes the actor isn't able to convey what they're trying to do either, you know. I mean, I've been in shows where, you know, during rehearsal, you know, you're putting your interpretation into what you think the character should be doing, and the director will say, oh, well, let's go this other way, and so you go the other way, follow the direction, and then the director said, no, I meant this way, and so in our mind as the actor, we're thinking, well, I thought I did that, but I guess not.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
because we feel as though we're going in that direction, but obviously what was seen by the director was not that direction. Yeah. So part of that, I think, plays out too. You know, when you do a show, the audience sees some parts of it, but not maybe the way that you wanted them to see it. Yeah.
And I think that's why working as a director gave me a lot more humility as an actor with directors, because I know they see what I cannot feel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're going to go to our first break.
Okay.
We will be back in just a moment. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the Think Tech Hawaii digital series. We'll be right back.
We want to thank our underwriters, Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve. Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company. The High Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle in Cook, Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on Think Tech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
Hi, we're back and we're live. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the Think Tech Hawaii digital series. I am Donna Blanchard, your host and proud managing director of Kumu Kahua Theatre. And I'm talking with Dann Seki, who is an actor and a storyteller and a board member of Kumu Kahua Theatre. And he just told me that he used to be a DJ. So I'm going to ask him about that too.
Oh, okay. I have to watch what I say during breaks, I suppose.
Yes, you do. Nothing is safe with me. So let's go back, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
You are a little boy, and
Okay.
when we're going way
Oh,
back.
that's way back.
You're a little boy,
Yes.
and can you tell me about the first moment when you felt a connection to, or felt drawn to movies or theater?
Wow. Probably all the way back to, as you said, when I was a little kid. You know, we were watching shows on television, and a lot of the drama, comedy, variety shows, whatever was going on at the time, always drew me. I mean, I found it very intriguing. But I didn't really seriously think about it until I got to high school, and you know, we were involved with some high school productions. And so when I went to college, my thought was to pursue that whole idea. I was interested in speech and drama. But the counselor that I had, you know, because in your sophomore year you have to go see your counselor and then sign your declaration to say what you're going to major in for the final 2 years. And so my sophomore year I went to see my advisor and told him what I was interested in. And he immediately said, "Well, no, you don't want to do that.
They still do that.
Speech
you know.
and drama, no, you don't want to do that. There's nothing to do that. You can't find a job, you know." I said, "Okay, well, so what do I do?" And so he pushed me in the direction of speech pathology, figuring that, well, that was still speech, not exactly what I had in mind, but so I went to see the speech pathology department and thought it was interesting, so that's what I signed up for. And at that time, University of Hawaii offered a degree in speech pathology and audiology, and so you have to take both subjects. And in that course, I found that I was more interested in audiology, which is what I ended up with. But I think we went off the subject there.
you just went through about 20 years, and what's the first play that you saw? Stage production.
Wow. I can't remember. First
Really?
play that
Everybody
I saw?
always remembers the first.
I can't remember the first play that I saw.
Wow.
Wow. I'd have to think about
Okay.
that now.
What's the first one that you remember that does come to mind?
Nothing comes to mind.
You know what? Maybe it was film.
It might have been,
That
yeah.
spoke
Well,
to
I
you
liked,
more.
yeah, because when we were watching television, of course, they would have a lot of the old classics on TV, and I liked a lot of the old-time actors and a lot of the old-time movies, I suppose, more than because we didn't go to I didn't, at least when I was younger, go to the movie theater as much, yeah. So whatever movies I was exposed to is probably more on television than at the theater. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you prefer working in films over theater, or vice versa?
I enjoy theater because it's got the more continuous through line, you know, from start to finish, in terms of the character going through this, whatever the character is going through in the course of the play. With films, it's a little bit fragmented, yeah. I mean, a lot of times we're shooting scenes that are not even in sequence. You know, they're shooting the end, and then they're shooting the beginning, and then they're shooting the middle, and then somewhere in between. So you're kind of jumping around. So a lot of times the challenge for the actor is to remember where you are in the sequence, and obviously call up the emotion or whatever that's going on at that point in time. Whereas in a play, it's a little bit more obvious. You don't have to think about it as much because you're kind of going through that whole process. And as the actor is taking the arc from beginning to end. So I think I enjoy plays a little bit more than movies. I enjoy movies from the standpoint that it's easier to do as an actor. You know, as an actor and you're on stage, you know, obviously you have to remember all the lines through all the scenes from beginning to end, and for many times you don't really have any chance to stop during that process. Whereas, you know, with a film, you have action and cuts, so you can always stop and say, oh, I forgot that line, let's start that again, kind of thing, which you don't have that same privilege as a stage actor.
You know, there is something really wonderful in the filming process that you get to, you will do the same scene over and over and over again, and you get an opportunity to find things within it, and you really can perfect moment to moment.
True. Yes.
What drives me absolutely insane is that I shoot something that is the afternoon of that day, and then later we're shooting something for morning, but because of a decision I made during the filming of the afternoon, I can't change something in the morning. There's been some sort of I've discovered something about my character's intentions, and now I'm locked in, because you rarely get the opportunity to go back and shoot that afternoon scene again. And whereas in theater, even in professionals theaters, you're spending at least 2 weeks in a rehearsal process. So you have all of that discovery time with your fellow cast members, and that opportunity throughout the run of a show for those little tweaks and for those organic discoveries and discussions can continue.
That's true. But then on the other side of that, the advantage of the film is that you can make those adjustments. You know, if going back to your example, if what you had decided in the first scene that you shot was a good decision and everybody was happy with that maybe when you went to that second scene, which was actually before that they actually have to change one or the other so that they kind of match, because they like what choices you made in terms of the character. I was in a film once that we would basically went back and had to shoot the first few scenes that we had already shot, because as a director was directing the scenes, he realized that the actor's hair was too long for the character, and so they cut his hair, made it shorter. But then that meant we had to go back. This is just a physical thing, it's not a performance thing, but just to go back to the earlier scenes to shoot those same scenes again with him now with his shorter
To
hair.
fix that.
Yeah. So it's kind of like making choices as you go along and hoping that those choices won't mess things up too much, that you have to actually go back and do it all over again. You know.
Well, so you were involved in theater in high school.
Just the high school productions. You know, whenever we did school things, whether it's the class production or the school production. Small stuff, you know, skits more than plays, I suppose. Yeah.
And then you went to college and studied audiology.
Audiology and speech pathology.
Did you do any?
I did not do any theater, if that's what you're asking. Yeah, I didn't do any theater. This was during the period just right in the middle of Vietnam. And so draft was always looming there. And so for most of us, you know, it was you had to take these courses in order for you to graduate, and you know, so there wasn't a lot of extra time to take the courses that you really wanted to take, you know, ceramics 101 or theater 101 or whatever, the ones that you really wanted to do for fun, but you couldn't get to because you had to take the ones that you had to take in order to graduate. So I didn't do any acting in college, and I didn't really do anything until after I graduated.
After you graduated, so you didn't go, because you were in the Navy, weren't you?
Army.
Army, beg
yeah.
your pardon.
No, it's okay.
Did you
They're
go
all good services.
there right? Did you go there right out of college?
I did not. I continued on to get my advanced degrees, and then I went into the Army after that.
Okay.
So while I was in the Army was my first experience working with theater. We were stationed at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and there wasn't any theater groups there. And as it turned out, there were a group of us who were interested in theater. And so we decided to put a group together, and we formed a theater group at Fort Knox and put on Butterflies Are Free. And the reason we chose that particular play was because it only had 2, 3 characters, so we figured we'd just go small.
Keep it small.
And the set was very minimal. So we put on Butterflies Are Free, and that was my first experience at working on live theater, which is great. Yeah. So after we came back to Hawaii, I got involved more. Again, didn't get involved with theater right away. I actually got involved, as we were talking about earlier, radio. I started out in radio, and one of the other DJs was involved with acting, and so he kind of introduced me to that. So I started out in commercials and TV shows, and then at some point in time, I think it was 1988 or 89, branched out into live theater, and that was kind of a neat experience at the time.
Wait, how did you end up? You just glossed right over the whole radio
okay.
thing. How did you end up there? Do you really not want to talk about it?
No, not at all, not at all. You know, as I said, going back to college days, I was always interested in speech and drama, and so the opportunity came up to take a course in radio. You know, the old I can't remember the name of the school now, but radio training, and out of the radio training, as part of the training, they put you into some field placement so that you get some real life experiences working at a live radio station. And so I did that in my final section of the training, put in some time at this radio station, who at that particular moment in time had like completely cleaned house. They had gotten rid of all of their on-air staff for whatever reason, and so they were looking for new on-air staff. And so the boss, who was I'm not sure what his title was, the manager, I guess, when I was doing my training, said, "Oh, are you interested on going on the air? Because we need people." And I said, "Sure." You know, and
Wow.
I was working full time at the time. I was still in the Army, actually, at Tripler, and so the only days I could really work was either the overnights or the weekends. So I ended up with a lot of the weekend gigs, you know, Saturdays and Sundays. So
Music, you're spinning.
playing music.
Little
Yeah.
wee.
Yeah. Started out with the old, for those of you who are old enough to remember, the 8-track tapes. Yeah, and we had of course, the discs as well. But yeah, that was the old days of radio. And then I graduated from the 8-track disc cartridges to big old, you know, 14-inch reel-to-reel tape machines and stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Old style radio.
And was there much talking that was going on as well?
In the breaks between the songs, we would have sets of 2 or 3 songs, depending on how long the songs were, and then we would stop, and then we would do some commercial breaks. We had news, of course, weather reports and all of that, which typically on the overnights, on the weekends, you did it all yourself. Yeah, there wasn't somebody in the newsroom who would do the news.
You were going through it.
You had to actually do the news yourself. So
Awesome. I never knew that.
yeah, it's just fun.
We have to go to a break. We'll be back in just a moment. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the Think Tech Hawaii digital series. Right back. Hi, we're back. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the Think Tech Hawaii digital series, and we have a couple of tweets here. Dan has always been one of my stage heroes. Watching him act is like taking a master class.
Wow.
Isn't that nice?
That is nice.
I remember Dan on radio Kumu, yeah?
That's
Columbia
correct.
School of Broadcasting.
Columbia School of Broadcasting. Thank you. I was blanking on the name.
Thank you very much, Will Kahele. So when you got into, so you said you were into commercials and TV. Did you feel like, ooh, that's something I really want to do? I want to seek this out. I'm getting this vibe from you that it just was there, and you said, oh yeah, okay.
You're talking theater?
Television. Did you say you did television and commercials first?
I did.
How did that come about?
A fellow DJ at the radio station was into the acting side, and he put me in touch with his agent, and then through that agent went to auditions for commercials, and then subsequently to some of the episodic television shows that were being filmed here. So I was basically introduced to it through that fellow DJ, I suppose.
Oh, okay. And you just said, I'll do that. No formal training.
No, not really, because I hadn't majored in theater and drama and speech and all that stuff, all the stuff I wanted to do, but I didn't. So yeah, no really formal training in it. Kind of on the job training.
You did, definitely.
OJT, yeah.
Well, and Dan, there are a lot of people who have that training who seek out or going to auditions all the time and don't have the sort of resume that you do. So let's talk about why you think that is. This is a
why
natural.
do I think that is?
Yeah.
Well, I would, I guess, have to agree with that, obviously, because I haven't had any real formal training. I have done some reading in the area, and I have had training since then. And I think one of the comments that I heard from one of the teachers, I can't remember now whether it was a book or just a live teacher, but one of the instructors said that we have to be careful that we're walking that fine line between taking somebody's innate talent, gift, whatever we want to call it, and not messing it up with all of the lessons and techniques that we tend to teach during these acting classes, you know. So I guess in my personal case, since I didn't have a lot of acting classes, a lot of that had to be choices that I made myself as I went along, and I guess ended up being good choices, assuming I got the part.
Well,
anyway.
yeah.
Yeah.
They have to have been.
You know, and I've taken classes since then, as I said, and trying to always improve. I think that as a performer, it's like any, if you want to use a sports analogy, you know, sports, a person who's practicing a particular sport has to keep practicing at it and taking lessons and getting better, otherwise they just stay the same. And so that was kind of the attitude I had in terms of taking acting lessons or classes, to see if I could get better. And some of it is usable, and you know, some of it is not, and I think it's a choice that a performer makes along the way. You know, it's like saying, okay, well, I don't really agree with that, so I won't do that, but
Yeah, it has to work for
you
you.
try to pull out of it what you think is useful to you and that you can apply to what you're doing.
This is why we are working on offering more acting classes at Kumu Kahua Theatre, because there really is a dearth of those opportunities for adult actors
Yes.
here on the island.
Yes.
And I love to go to classes and just continue to hone the skill.
I agree, and I think that's one of the things that has come out of the classes that I have taken is that not maybe so much for me, but for the future performers that we're trying to develop, that the classes give one an opportunity to fool around, to use those muscles to do things that you wouldn't normally do, and you're only doing it because the teacher, the instructor is saying do this, and so you do it, and then you start feeling more comfortable with your body in terms of movement and in terms of saying a line a particular way, or just even saying the line. You know, I think for the most part, a lot of folks who even want to pursue performing, I think the greatest fear that most people have is speaking in front of a group of people. And that's still true even for, I think, actors or people who want to be actors, that, you know, you still feel a little bit uncomfortable when you have to get up in front of a whole bunch of people and actually do something or say something. And so the more classes you take, the more comfortable you get doing that, and the more pleasure, and I think the more comfortable you get doing that. And so over time you can overcome all of those uncomfortable situations, and hopefully then become a better performer because you feel more comfortable.
Yeah. And I think that comfort comes from awareness of how you're showing up, and awareness of the choices that you have, and also learning to trust yourself. That I'm really not going to say something completely off the mark. My brain is going to be there for me. It's going to be okay. I just have to take a few deep breaths.
Yes.
But I also believe that as far as those classes go, I think that what we bring to our art is different because it grows with us. So as our bodies change, as we gain new experiences, we have a different set of filters that information is coming into and moving out through. I think for everyone, acting classes there's a lot of wonderful things to be offered there. But for actors in particular, unless you are very, very disciplined on your own, it's a great playground to experience, what do I have today?
Right.
You know, if we did Sound and Beauty again next year, your character would not be exactly what he was before, just by virtue of a year.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. Yeah. Yep, gives everybody a chance to kind of play around with ideas before you actually have to do it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's a very pure expression of the art when you're not doing it for applause.
Sure.
We have to take another break. We will be right back. This is the Arts in Hawaii on Think Tech Hawaii. See you in a few.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Horry for Think Tech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo.
Hi, we're back and we're live. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the Think Tech Hawaii digital series. I'm Donna Blanchard, and I'm talking with actor and storyteller Dan Seki. What's up with the storytelling? Let's talk about that.
Yes, good idea. Neil Milner, you spoke with him a while back, and Nyla Fujiibab. Nyla and I were in a lot of plays together, and she has always been a storyteller from way back. And she tried early on to get me involved in storytelling, and I, of course, always resisted until one day I guess I couldn't say no anymore. And so she got me involved with storytelling, and I love it. So it was just somebody twisted my arm initially to do it, and now I do it because I enjoy it, not because somebody's twisting my arm, I guess.
What is it when you say storytelling? What does that look like?
You know, I suppose you could interpret it different ways. Telling a story, you know, basically we're all storytellers in a sense. You know, we have a story and we tell it, and so we're storytellers. And so whether it's a formal story about, you know, once upon a time there was kind of thing, or just telling personal stories, there are storytellers who are professional storytellers. You know, they crisscross across the continent and the world, actually, and that's what they do. It's for a living. They tell stories, and a lot of them tell personal stories, which I don't do. But you know, they'll tell stories about their uncle and their aunt and their father and their mother and growing up in Minnesota or whatever, and they're making them really interesting, poignant, funny stories. Neil is very good at that. I tend to be more, I tell a story that somebody else has written, you know, so I'll do a fable or a story that is in the books already, basically, and try to make it my own and tell it my way.
And for whom are you doing that?
Typically, I'm working with the outreach program at the University of Hawaii, and so they put us in libraries, typically senior centers, anybody else really who wants to have a storyteller come in and do stories. So I've done stories at libraries on most of the islands, at some senior centers. And so you try to tailor the story to the particular audience that you're talking to, or the particular time frame that you're dealing with. For example, a lot of times I'll get calls in October to do ghost stories, or stories that fit the Halloween mode, I suppose. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so we're all telling stories. Theater is telling stories. Stand-up. I think of Joan Rivers and Roseanne Barr. Their stand-up comedy was just painting pictures with words.
Right.
Yeah. And it seems like storytelling, I hear much more about it here in Hawaii than ever before. I don't know if it's just the crowd I'm running with or what. Do you think it's more prevalent here?
No, actually, it's probably less prevalent here. It's a bigger deal. You know, they have these huge storytelling festivals in parts of
Tennessee
the United States.
has
Tennessee
the
has
Hall
a
of
big,
Fame.
huge one. And so in Hawaii, we don't see that as much. Jeff Gear has done a great job with a storytelling festival that they put on once a year here. And then there are other venues where I think what you're seeing now is there's kind of more involvement with storytelling than there has been in the past. More interest in it, I suppose. And Kumu's a good example of that, because I think, actually, just not Kumu, but most theaters, but Kumu specifically that I'm thinking about, is that, you know, you try to capture stories of the community, you know, stories of the people who are here, and there are a lot of stories that we still haven't told. You know, that there are a lot of stories that still haven't been discovered. And so that, I think, is the interesting and fascinating thing about storytelling. Now, we can extend it to say, well, a whole play is then a long story, basically, or you can have a short story, 30 seconds. But yeah, I think that there is what you're seeing now in Hawaii is more of an increased awareness of the craft, I suppose, of telling stories, because there's more interest, I think, in knowing what's going on, what went on in the past, and there are stories, or discovering stories that haven't been told yet, because somebody hasn't written it down yet.
Right.
So that, so I think there is some interest in it. I think there is some more of an involvement now than there was in the past for storytelling. Yeah.
Okay, I'm very curious about it. I've been to the Storytelling Hall of Fame in Jonesboro, Kentucky, and I had not, before that I had never watched a professional storyteller.
Right.
I had never seen it, and this was not too many. This was like 4 years ago that I saw it initially, and it was entertaining. There was a craft to it, and it gave me all sorts of questions about: do you tell that story the same way every time? How much of yourself are you intentionally bringing to the story? How much of the audience are you bringing? You know, you look out and here's what you see, and because you don't have a script, right? Are they different every time?
Typically, it is. Some of the times I'm doing stories written by other people, and in those cases, I try to be true to the word in terms of trying to say the right words in the right sequence.
Right.
But if it's a story that's been around a while, Hansel and Gretel kind of thing, yeah, then you would tend to tweak it to fit the audience or your memory, because sometimes you forget certain parts of it, so you have to kind of work around that blank spot that you have in your brain.
Yeah. I get a blank spot in my brain.
All the
To me,
time.
it's larger than usual. I've been noticing. I've been fighting. Nobody's noticed, I'm sure. Let's hear some of the movies and television shows that you've been in.
Wow. Well, I've been in pretty much most of the episodic shows that were filmed in Hawaii. You know, going back to Magnum P.I. and Jake and the Fat Man, and all the shows that came to Hawaii and that were filming, you know, the series basically. So I've been in most of those. I've been in some made-for-TV type movies, like I'm blanking now. Only and the Sea Will Tell. The Informant, which is a movie. So whatever comes into town, and they're looking for somebody locally who can play a particular role, those are the ones that I've been
That's
trying to
you.
get into.
You have that market cornered, don't you?
No, I wish I did. That would have been great.
Oh,
Yeah.
Seki's here. Might as well go.
Yeah.
I saw you in Lost,
Ah, yes.
because you know I had never watched Lost, and once I moved here, I thought, well, I really ought to watch
Yeah,
that
watch
show
that, yeah.
since it was filmed here. I was very happy to see you.
Yeah.
And you still do a lot of work on Hawaii Five-0?
I was in season 1
Oh,
of Hawaii Five-0, and so I haven't been back since.
now
then.
you've been there and done that.
Yeah, well, you know, in the old Hawaii Five-0, in the Jack Lord series, because TV was a lot different back then, I think. They tended to use a lot of the same actors in different roles, you know. So if you watch the old shows, the old original series, you know, you might see an actor playing a cop in one show, and then he'd be a banker in another show, and then he'd be a bad guy in one of the shows, and same actor. They're not doing that as much nowadays, and I think that's probably maybe because of the digital age that we're in, that people can DVR things and play it back, and you know,
It could get confusing.
it could get very
actually.
confusing
Yeah.
actually to see the same actor playing different roles in even the same year. You know, they're not saying 4 seasons later, but in the same season they're seeing the same actor. So they're tending not to do that nowadays. So if you played a prominent role in Hawaii Five-0, tendency is that they're not bringing it back unless that particular character is coming back.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's not as fun for the actors.
Yeah, it's not. It's not.
I have to wrap up. I'm sorry to say that. I'm enjoying
Well,
the conversation.
I am sorry too,
It's a
yeah.
nice opportunity to get to know you a little better, Dan. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming. And,
Thank you.
keep an eye out for Dan in Under the Blood Red Sun, which we're not quite sure when it's going to be
We're not
released just yet. But Tim said that we may have Graham Salisbury come in and talk on the show.
That'd be great.
So we'll be able to give you the heads up on that directly. I have to read now. I'm Donna Blanchard of Kumu Kahua Theatre. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the Think Tech Hawaii series. And we thank from the bottom of our hearts Dan Seki for coming in and talking with us. Thank you also to our production manager, Ian Davidson, who is in my ear, our communications director, Chrissy Goffigan, and to Jay Fidel, who somehow manages to put it all together. Thanks to you for watching and for listening. Check out our previous broadcasts on YouTube by going to thinktechhawaii.com, and please like us on Facebook.